Well, g'day and welcome back to the shed. Welcome to part 2 of this Stromberg Carlson Model 542. And I should point out, after some comments that were made, that Stromberg Carlson Australia has very little to do with its parent company in the US. It was an independent operation. So this is an Australian made radio. And I haven't seen one of these before. They're not all that common. Anyway, if you watched part 1, you'll realise that I got a little bit overconfident and I changed all the capacitors all at once, expecting it to spring back into life. I changed the filter caps, all the papers, anything else that looked dodgy, put it back together, and it didn't work. So I was scratching my head there for a while, but I managed to track the fault down, and it turned out to be a bad solder joint. So at the end of part 1 I had it singing away happily, and I was happy. I'd also fixed the speaker up, and it's sounding quite good. I haven't heard it in the cabinet yet, but it seems to be quite good sound coming from it. So that's promising. So in this episode I only have a couple of resistors to change and a bit of fettling to do, and I thought it was going to be straightforward and that part 2 might be a bit boring, but again the radio had other ideas. Have a look at this. I just changed this 100k resistor here, and the thing stopped working. I'm not really sure why. Done something wrong, obviously. Luckily I tested it straight after changing it. I was a bit spooked by my earlier experience, so after changing each one I've been checking, and after changing this one it stopped working. So anyway, I guess I'll find out what's wrong sooner or later. Well, I'm not sure what's going on here, but there is something intermittent about this coil here. If I just push on this.
Baker, he'll retreat to Richards at centre half forward.
So I think this wire here seems to be the most, not that one, this one I think. I'll resolder that and see if it makes a difference. Yeah, well, I just resoldered that joint and it seems to have sorted the problem out, so I'll live again.
On Anzac Day, ABC Radio Perth will be broadcasting the National Commemorative Service from the Australian War Memorial in Canberra from 5:30 a.m. It will include the Anzac dedication, an address by the Prime Minister, and the ode will be read out at around 10 minutes to 6.
Anzac Day 2023.
Okay, well, the radio's working well again now. I've just changed the last 2 resistors, thankfully without incident. I was I'm scared to touch this thing now in case it does something to me again. But no, it's all done. So now the only thing is to clean up the chassis, and it's not come up very well with a clean. The surface here is quite pitted and rusted. I've rubbed this down. I've treated it with rust converter, but yeah, it's not going to come up well. And it's not a packed chassis, it doesn't have an awful lot on it, so it might be feasible to just take the tubes out. I think I can take these IF cans off without any ill effect. Probably the tuning capacitor here too, and spray the top of it. I think that's the only way I'm going to get a decent result on this. So I may as well get on with that with great trepidation after it's stopped working every time I've done anything to it. In fact, the 2 bad solders that I have found in it were both attached to that same coil, which is this one, or the underside of it. So it may have just been that area of the chassis that was badly soldered to start with. I really don't know. So I've got the valves out, and I thought I'd start by taking out the tuning capacitor. It is quite dirty, so I'll probably put it in the ultrasonic cleaner when I'll get it out. There we go. It's 1. 2, and there's the earth braid on there. That might take a little bit of melting. There we go. And the rest is just a matter of undoing 3 screws. What could possibly go wrong? Next I thought I'd take the top off these IF cans. Might give me an opportunity to work out how they adjust as well. And this is a 6.3 volt line to the dial lamps, probably best kept routed away from the IF can just in case we get a hum problem or something. Just lift this wire gently. Given the number of dry joints and whatever in this chassis, I'm a little bit wary of pulling the wiring around too much, but I kind of need to get this out. So this can is attached to that phenolic board with this little wire link, and these 2 tabs poke up through the top. I'll just try and undo that. Looks straightforward enough. There we go. And that should now press out. Oh, of course there's the grid lead to the tube that I'll have to take off. Just unsolder that. Okay, so this should now just lift off. And there we have the IF transformer. And if you're going to have trouble with an IF transformer, this is the one to have it with. It has the values marked on the caps, which are easily replaceable, and these screw arrangements have a nice big hex head on them. And there's the other side of it. The cores are clearly visible. The wiring even looks repairable should it fail, although it's certainly intact. The only problem I can foresee is that these adjusters, the cores, I don't have any kind of non-metallic tool to adjust them with. Perhaps a little bit of WD-40 on them while I've got the thing out might be a good idea too. Well, there we go. I've got it all masked up. I've got bits of fridge magnet stuck on the underside in places. Other places I've done it with tape. I've masked the tops of the trimmers here with just a bit of blue tack on top. They were painted red, just a red dot on top of the screws, so I'll preserve that. Yeah, so it's as good as it's going to get. I've rubbed it down. I don't think there's any big lumpy bits on it. So I'm about to take it outside and spray it. Well, that's the chassis sprayed, and the colour match is actually very good. This is the original colour on here. I didn't want to lose all this printing, of course, and it's surprisingly similar. I think this may be a shade lighter, but very happy with that. It looks great. Now I've polished up these IF cans, but before I put them back on, I want to come up with some kind of tool to adjust them. Now these have a hex head adjusters on them, and that is just about 6 millimeters across the faces, I think. just a touch under, but 6 will do it. So I need to find something to fit over that. Okay, a bit of searching around the shed, and I've found this caulking gun nozzle. I'm just going to cut a bit off the end of it and see if I can mould it to the shape. And what I have is a nut which is pretty much the same size as the adjusters on that IF can. And the plan is to take this nut and bolt and heat this up and pull it through so that it will form itself to that size. Just try and cut around the edge. And that should do the trick. It's a little bit thinner on one side than the other, but I think it will work. Okay, so I've marked the position of this so I can put it back, and I'll just push that over there. Will it work? Will it go on? Yes. And it turns it. Just fitting the cans back over these IF transformers. The first one went okay. Just trying to feed this wire through, at the same time keep it in its little, it's got these little retaining things here which stop it from getting out of line, and this is not quite so easy. I might have to attach something to that and feed it and pull it through. Okay, I put a piece of, this wire's slightly stiffer, and I put a slightly longer piece on because it only barely reached before. So I should have a fair chance of feeding this in successfully now, I think. Yep, there we go. Now the second half of the problem is to get these two little tabs through on the top, and that is not going to be quite so easy. Okay, so there's one of them peeping through there. Now the other one. Just about got him. There we go. And that'll have to bend over to that valve. That should be alright. And I'll put a little piece of wire through that just to hold it. Okay. I'll tie that up. A little bit. I'll turn him upside down and put the nuts on. The last nut is always a bugger. Let's see if I can just get him started. I don't want to drop it inside the can if I can help it, so I'll have to take it off again to get it out probably. Yes, we have him threaded. see if I can get that in there. Well, that's more or less got it together. Got the tuning cap back in. So I guess it's about time I started putting valves in. Now let's see, what's this, 6U7, so that will go in there. That's a 6B6. Okay, that goes in here. This is a 6U7. It'll go in there. What do we got next? Lucky dip. Looks like we've got a 5Y3G T. It can go in there. What's next on the lucky dip? This looks like a 6V6. That's because it is a 6V6. And last but not least, a 6J8. There we go. And he doesn't have a can, so his valve cap can go on. Now, cans. There we go. And next we have one of those scary moments where we find out what I've done wrong. Or don't, as the case may be. I guess we might need a speaker, that'll be a good idea. I'll just clear this bench off a little bit. Okay, I've got to set it up with the speaker. I even optimistically plugged an aerial into it. So here goes. Dim bulb's not going full bright, so I haven't shorted anything out. That's probably a good thing. Heaters in the valves, that's another good thing, I guess. Yep, the dim bulb's coming up, so they're starting to conduct. And I'll go off dim bulb because there's no shorts. We have noise in the speaker, that's a good start.
So, yeah, Greeks are okay. We can let the Greeks in. We can let in the Manatis. You know, that'll be okay. And so my family came and they became builders there, and they went under their name, which was Kafkaloutis. My grandfather was Sotiris Kafkaloutis, and he was so proud of his name. And this is the thing about the pride of name. Does that mean that's...
Well, there we go. At least it still goes. I haven't broken anything. Well, we're at a stage now where I can start putting things back together, and this dial mechanism's ready to go. It's still working smoothly. Nothing's gone wrong. It's got a few specks on it there. So I'll put that back in now. Hopefully I've got all the screws in the right place so it'll just fit in. And apparently this screw here is extended and happens to just fit through a locating hole in the chassis, so they must have done that deliberately to help locate it in the right spot. Anyway, that should go through there, and I'll have to arrange this dial coupling, this shaft coupling here. Now this could be a bit tricky. I've got the these spacers in, and I'm hoping that I can just feed it all in and put it together. Just move this back a bit, and holding these in place. I should be able to just feed that in there. That one goes in there, and that one in there. I also have to get this coupling on the tuning cap in the right spot, and that does look like it's going in. Now if I lay this on its back, perhaps I should have done it this way to start with, but anyway, laying it on its back very carefully. Oh, there goes one of the spacers. I knew it. leave it hanging by a thread, so to speak, while I pick up that spacer, which has done a disappearing act on the floor. Oh no, there it is. Now I've got to try and get this nut in here. Not so easy, but I think we'll get it in all right. Yes, that's got it threaded. Yay! So, tip it right way up again. And yep, that springy coupling seems to have moved into about the right place. I'll just loosen the screws off on it though, and just make sure that it's not under tension. And that looks pretty good. So with the pointer at that end of its travel, that should be closed. I'll do the screws up, and I should be able to get at the other screw from the halfway point. Yep. Well designed this. It's designed so that you can access the screw, all of the screws easily, without having to struggle to get at them. And at this point, both of these screws are accessible. Tighten that up. And there we go, that's done. The next thing, I guess I may as well put these dye lights in. They've been hanging around like a nuisance for a while, so it's a little bit tight, that. It's going to go in all right though. I don't know why that's tight. I might have to look at the underside of the chassis and work out what's going on with that. It shouldn't be that tight. This one can go in here. I've cleaned all of these off, so they should all be grounded properly. Just put that wire under there. I don't know why this is so tight. I'll have to check what's going on underneath. A couple more things to do. I've got to replace the power cord, and I'll put one of Carl's cords in there. And the other thing, I was thinking of fitting a switch pot to the volume, because these don't have a power switch. And I've bought this pot, 500k, with a switch on it. The only thing is the shaft is too short, so I'd have to extend the shaft, and also the diameter of this this screw section here is a good deal smaller than the one on the radio, so I'd have to find a way of packing that out, or a shim or something to hold it in place properly. Otherwise it's going to flop around, and I don't want that happening. Okay, I've got it upside down again now, and there's the problem with that dial-like cord. It's just caught around this screw here, so that'll take some pressure off it. That'll be fine. I was just about to look at fitting the power cord, and I was going to consider changing this pot, whether to put a switch pot on it or not. And then I realised I haven't put the flywheel on the tuning shaft. Now I thought, oh, I'll just pop it on, but nope. There's no way I can get this flywheel onto that shaft without pulling the front panel off again. So I may as well do it now, bite the bullet, and put the flywheel on. This time though, I'm going to take this nut into position. It's just in an awkward spot there. So hopefully that will make it easier to replace the panel once I've got the flywheel on. The other one is easy to get to, so I won't worry about it. Okay, turn him over. It's a good deal heavier with that front panel on. Okay, now we need to release the coupling. Just turn it to the fully closed position. hums. Oh, the dial lamps. Alright, well there's the tuning knob flywheel back in place, and it does make a difference to the feel of the tuning. It seems to be working fine. I did video it, but when I looked at the video I had my hands in front of the camera for the whole thing, so not worth keeping. So I've decided to replace the pot with a switch pot, and of course the shaft was too long, apart from this threaded part being too small a diameter, so I've made up a little washer to go around that to pack it out so it'll fit neatly in the hole, and I've extended the shaft. This is just a piece of old shaft, and this piece here is a standoff I got off an old chassis, just a piece of hollow tube. Had I think 3 or 4 of them, and it turned out the inside diameter was just perfect. It's just a light push fit with no wriggle room at all. So I put that together with JB Weld, and that's had 24 hours at least to set, and I think that should be plenty strong enough. The bonus is that it fits through the hole in the chassis here without having to be reassembled or anything like that. I just realised something. I won't be able to get the nut over that. Oh, I'm going to have to pull it off again. And with JB Weld in it, I don't think I'll get that apart again. Oh dear. I'll see if I can pull this apart. We'll find out how good JB Weld is. Well, I was able to get it apart. It was possibly too tight a fit to allow for much material to be in there. And it just took a bit of twisting with a pair of vice grips with this in the vice, and I was able to slowly wriggle it off, break it free, and out it's come. Okay, so I've drilled a 2mm hole through there. I managed to get it pretty straight, and what I've got here is a 2mm thick nail. Well, it's slightly over because it's an interference fit, but I should be able to cut a piece of this and then press it through, and it should just stay there. And here's the new pot it fitted up okay. I put that, I used a 2mm nail to push through it. It wasn't a terribly tight fit. It wasn't flopping around, but I wasn't confident that it wouldn't fall out one day. So I put a piece of heat shrink over it to keep it in place, and I think that should be fine. I've run some wiring here to the switch, trying to keep it out of the way of everything. Okay.
Because it's so vast and so big. Now perhaps they have maybe reached, if not a turning point, then a point where they're starting to show that they're kind of full, if you like, of heat.
Unfortunately for us, 40 owners, we were in shock after the race. He virtually battled for his life.
But, well, you're in a good place if you're in the Barossa, because there's many places that will tend to it, Terry.
The classified records of various agencies.
Dr. Isaac Bagosh in Toronto in Canada, our rock and roll epidemiologist. Haven't spoken to him for a long time. Look, we've had interesting discussions.
As the day faded, they climbed the last leg of the track to the historic hut.
Well, there it is, substantially back together at least. Everything seems to be working as it should. I haven't yet done an alignment. I will just tweak the IFs to see what I get, provided I can reliably work out what the IF frequency is. Anyway, it's late at night. I should be in bed. I've got to work tomorrow, so I'll get back to this on Saturday morning and finish it off, hopefully. So the next thing to do, and probably the last thing with this chassis, is to refit the dial glass. Now, here it is, where it's been wrapped up and kept while I've been working on it. The paint turned out to be very, very fragile. It was powdering. It's actually pretty good now. I sprayed it with hairspray. It seemed to be the least destructive thing to do. There is a tiny amount missing there on this line and this line, and there's not very much I can do about that. I cleaned the front, but of course I couldn't do much to clean the back. That should just slide down here. Oh, hang on, I've tightened these screws up, I think. I did respray this back board as well. There we go. I'll just make sure the pointer runs through without scraping on the lettering or anything, because if it does, it'll take it straight off. Yep, that seems fine. Interesting the way the dial lights are constructed. This has a semicircular piece of plywood here and a similar piece of plywood on each side, and the depth of that is such that the filament of the globe is just level with the edge of the glass, and so it will shine into the glass panel and light it. And so I'm going to just clean the edge of the glass under the globe here. This would not work with the smaller globes that you can get now with just a small bulb, and I can't get any more of these at the moment. If I find some, I'll buy them, but at the moment the longer form globes are impossible to get. And over the top of this we have this reflector, which is white inside to reflect the light downwards, so that will go on like that. I'll just find the screws for it though. So there we go. I'm tempted to plug it in and turn the lights off just to see how it looks. It's daytime now, but I should get some idea. And here we go. Oh, if you cover those up, yes, it does backlight them reasonably well. I don't have the speaker plugged in at the moment, so we're not going to hear anything. It does sound like someone's laid an egg. Okay, so let's have a look at what we've got here. This cabinet is in really nice original condition. It has a little bit of wear and tear on it, but not a lot. So there's not a lot I'll need to do to it, but there are a couple of issues I would like to address, I think, that wouldn't detract from its originality. And one of those issues is the condition of these crossbars across the speaker grill. As you can see, most of the paint's missing. The original timber's showing underneath. This is a very dark brown colour, which you typically find on radios of this era, and was often used to paint in end grain and areas that they didn't want to display the grain. That said, this timber underneath is quite nice, but it doesn't match the colour of the rest of the cabinet. So I guess the first thing to do is to colour match this. So this is the first trial of the experimental colour I mixed up. I've been messing with it for a while, and I think this is going to be close. Hang on, the cabinet's moving on me. I'll see how that looks. So I'm just going to clean this, and I'm just using a damp brush to get into the corners there. Okay, so this is the test patch I did, and I do think it does need a bit of adjusting. It's a little bit darker than the surrounding paint, even now it's been cleaned. I don't think that will change much with cleaning. So I'll just remix a little bit. I think it needs a little bit more brown and perhaps a slight touch of red, maybe a match head. Okay, so this is my revised colour, and I'm just going to try a little bit on there and see how it looks against the other once it dries. Okay, so that's had a chance to dry off now, and just wetting both sides. It's actually pretty good. You can't really tell where the old colour starts. So that's I'm pretty satisfied with that, so I'll go ahead and touch these in with that colour, and hopefully it'll make it look a little bit smarter. They've come up pretty well. What I'm doing now is just rubbing just a slight bit of it off the edges, so it just reveals a little bit of the underlying timber in places, which will make it look more genuine, I guess. I know it's fake, but it is more authentic looking, if you know what I mean. Just a little bit. I don't want to go too far. I don't want them looking ugly. While I'm at it though, I will just touch in a little bit of this rash that it's got on the front here. Looks as if it's been scraped against something or something. Just let that dry, and it will blend in with the rest. As I said before, I've taken the speaker baffle out of it, and here it is. The grill cloth is in pretty bad state. It will fall apart pretty soon. So I'll be taking this off, and I'll show you what I've got to replace it at the moment. This is a piece of Air Zone pattern cloth that I bought, and it's pretty close, similar pattern, although the pattern in this is slightly smaller, and when you look at it closely it is a different pattern. But it's not a bad colour match. Allowing for the fading in here, it's pretty close to the unfaded sections. So there's the original and there's the new stuff. This is a little bit more reddish goldish, I think. Nice stuff though. I decided to trail fit the grill cloth just to see how it looks. Of course it still has the light shining through the speaker hole, but looking at it here, it does have that small pattern in it similar to the original. It's quite a nice colour really, I think it suits it. In any case, I'm going to remove the speaker baffle and grill cloth now and give the cabinet a bit of a polish up. And first up, I noticed it has got a bit of rash around the bottom of the plinth. It's only got very small plinth on it, but that will be noticeable, I think. So I'll touch that up with the same paint formula that I used for the grill bars. Just looking at the veneer on the rest of the cabinet, and it's in remarkably good condition for 80 odd years old. It's obviously been well cared for all its life, but it is rather dry. It's starting to craze a little bit, so I thought I'd try some Marvere on it. This is a product that my mother used. It's an old product. It's made in Melbourne, Victoria. I don't know if you can buy it anywhere else, but it's a very fine furniture oil, marketed as wood, deep wood tonings. I don't think it does anything at all to the colour. It just seems to rejuvenate the surface quite well. That said, I'll give the cabinet a coat of wax after I've finished with this to help preserve it. So here we go. And see how it soaks into the wood. It really is quite thirsty. The instructions on the bottle say to rub it into the surface. but it does penetrate very nicely. And I'll just buff that off with a soft dry cloth. This is just a microfiber, but they're good for just about everything. I really don't know what's in this mother here. They don't tell you. But been around for a long time, so it's not going to contain any silicones or anything like that. Now the top's probably had the most exposure, and it is a bit more crazed than the rest. But yeah, this is bringing it up nicely. It'll be fine. And the final bit, this front panel, which is rather nice. Okay, I'll leave that to soak in for a little while, and then I'll come back and give it a coat of furniture wax. Before I put the chassis back in the cabinet, I thought I would do a quick alignment of the IFs at least, and I'll see what the RF alignment looks like. I may need to tweak that as well. So I've got it pretty much set up. I've clipped a couple of leads to the speaker here, leading to the meter. I've even got a camera set up on the meter so you can see what's going on. And I've been messing with my signal generator to try and coax 458 kilohertz out of it. That is apparently what the IF frequency is, according to the Radio Museum, and it's also shown here on the schematic. It appears to have been handwritten in, but that's two confirmations that it's 458 kilohertz. So I've set up the old leader signal generator here, and I'm checking the output on the frequency counter here. And that has been the source of some consternation, because depending on how I place the leads or whatever, I'm getting all kinds of bizarre readings from it. It seems to be stable now. It's giving me a steady reading, but I was so unsure of what was going on at one point that I've actually set it up on the scope here so that I could watch that the waveform wasn't changing, because it was giving me some really strange readings. But in fact, that's the output we're getting, and it's a nice clean output. Another annoying thing is that the frequency counter seems to require the maximum output from the signal generator to get anything like a stable reading. In fact, if I turn the output down, that's getting about 2 volts peak to peak. Then we start to get different outputs. You can see from the scope that the waveform has not changed. It's getting lower in amplitude, but the frequency is stable. So this is about 2 volts peak to peak output before you can even get a reading off it. So I'm starting to think I might need some new equipment. Anyway, that aside, let's get going with the alignment. I don't have any alignment instructions for this radio, so I'm just going to have to play it by ear. So what I thought I'd do is I'd take the output from the signal generator and feed it into the grid of the mixer oscillator tube here. The what is it? It's a 6J8. I guess I'll take the lead off the tuning cap. So I'll just put that through this cap here. This is a 0.001, I think, and this can go to ground. And I guess it would help if I turn the radio on, so I'll do that. And I'm going to I've attenuated the signal down to the point where I can't hear anything now. I'll just bring it up to the point where I can hear it just, and get a useful reading on the meter. And so, using my specially crafted tool, I'm going to start with, I guess, the second IF. I don't know why, because we don't know anything about this. just turning it clockwise. It's bringing it down a touch. Anti-clockwise is bringing it up a touch. Oh, we're getting something out of that. And at that point it stops going up. It doesn't go down again, but it's not getting any better, so I'll pause at that point and I'll do the top coil now. Turning clockwise, it's going down. And I'm now going over it a second time just to peak it. But I think that's our peak there. And that is on a much lower signal level than it was before. So I think we've got the most out of it. Okay, so now just to check the RF alignment. And I've got the signal generator set to 600, and I'm looking for 7ZL here, should be 600. And I can hear it faintly there, but it actually comes in more strongly about there. So I'm going to try and adjust the oscillator coil to bring it in the right spot. So here goes nothing. Yeah, it seems to be increasing. There we go, that's in exactly the right spot. Okay, so now I'll set up the signal generator to 1500 and I'll tune it to 3OK, which is 1500, and see where that comes in. So 1500, I'll have to go to band C on this and go back to 1.5. Function 1 to confirm, and that should be on megahertz. So 1502 by the gauge, 1500. Gee, that's pretty damn good, isn't it? I think I'll leave that alone. Where is it? 3, 2, 3. There it is. It's only a little bit off. And this little screw adjuster here, I think, as far as I can work out, is the paddle for the oscillator. So hopefully I can adjust that and bring it in. It's a very fine adjustment, but there it is. You're getting a bit of parallax error there, but it is spot on 3AK. So I'll go back to the other end now and just line up the oscillator with 600 again. And there's 7ZL. It's quite a broad range, but that seems to be the peak about there. So I think that's pretty good. Maybe it's a touch off. Yeah, I think the peak is about there. Yeah, that's about it. It seems to be going all right.
And get to date up, and women don't.
How big a statement would it be? And we say Adam Simpson today, they Australian actor and performer Barry Humphries by the Melbourne Comedy.
Well, we've finally reached the point where there's nothing more to do. I've taken the wooden stands off the side, bunched the cord up, and it's time for this old girl to go back into her cabinet. So here we go. Plug the speaker in. And there we have it back in its cabinet. It's almost a pity to turn it around, but only another radio restorer would say that. Okay, and a new set of knob felts I think is in order. These are from Carl's capacitors. And of course, we need to fit the knobs. There we go, all the knobs on. Alright, it's switched on, it's warmed up. Let's see how it sounds with the speaker in the cabinet.
Want to kick further, run faster, jump higher, or lift heavier? Then you need INC today. INC Sports.
Counterweight with bricks on the opposite side of the house and interior.
Yeah, so I know that there were some companies that trialled.
No, Joy, but is it going to be too good?
The thing is tracking up's going bolting.
Boo zero?
Yeah.
Come on, Brayden.
Plus more Australians staying at home. That will...
Better not leave that on too long. Anyway, there it is, back in its cabinet, working nicely, and I'd have to say looking pretty good too. It really is a credit to its owners that it's been looked after so well for the last 80 years. And hopefully being electrically restored, it will last for another 80 years or however long it takes. I doubt if AM broadcasting in Australia will last another 80 years, unfortunately. In any case, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and we hope to catch you in the shed next time.